Raise your standards to find the right person. Matthew Hussey, Love Life, How to Raise Your Standards, Find Your Person, and Live Happily, No Matter What. Being single is hard, dating is confusing, and even when you're in a relationship, it's not all happily ever after. So many of us find ourselves in difficult situations, wondering why the other person behaves the way they do and if they're ever going to change. Flakiness, unresponsiveness, lack of commitment, avoidance, red flags galore. But then again, are we sure these are red flags? Maybe we're the ones who are being too fussy. Basically, the question is this: how do we know if the other person is right for us? Whatever your relationship status, Love Life helps you navigate the minefield. Matthew Hussey has years of experience as a dating coach. He's talked to countless people, women in particular, and he knows just how hard it can be. But he's also identified common patterns of behavior, and he's come up with simple, practical solutions that anyone can use to save themselves time and avoid pain. He wants to show you how to spot the warning signs and how to have those tricky conversations. By the way, while Hussey is known as a relationship expert, his goal is not to get everyone into sometimes being happily single is just what you need, at least for a while. It's much better than being stuck in a relationship or a situationship that's making you miserable. So get ready to learn what to look for and what to steer clear of when you're dating. If you want a healthy, committed relationship and a happy life no matter what, this is what you need to know. The 4 stages of importance for a long-term relationship. The 4 stages of importance for a long-term relationship. Not so long ago, a female friend of Hussey's went through a breakup. After 7 years and no proposal, she decided she'd had enough. The woman soon got into another relationship, which also ended. Then she started seeing someone else, and when that didn't work out, she moved on to the next one. It seemed to Hussey that his friend was choosing these men almost at random. She not only had a fear of being single, she tended to get swept up in a love story. And it's like that for so many of us. Each new romance is a new story where you get to play a starring role. We all love love stories. Titanic, for instance. We can't help but be captivated by the story of Jack and Rose. But the thing about Titanic, and all the other enchanting romances, is that they're not real life. Love stories distract from the essential elements that make relationships last. According to Hussey, we need to look beyond these narratives and focus on what truly enriches a partnership. If you're looking for a long-term, committed relationship, you need to ask yourself, what's really worth valuing? What should you be looking for? Hussey has come up with a useful framework to help assess potential long-term partners. He calls it the 4 levels of importance. The first level is admiration. You feel drawn to the person, and there's some basic attraction. That's nice, of course, but it's not important. It doesn't mean there's a solid foundation for a deeper connection. Moving up, the second level is mutual attraction. This can feel like a big deal because of its intensity and rarity. When someone we like reciprocates our feelings, it's thrilling, and we can quickly start dreaming of an epic romance. However, mutual attraction can be misleading. There's no guarantee that both people will ultimately want the same things. The third level, commitment, is where things start to really matter. Commitment means more than just attraction. It represents a joint decision to build a future together. Without this mutual agreement, a relationship lacks a foundational pillar. Think of it this way. When you're dating someone, it's like you found this nice plot of land together. There's potential. You could build a house here, or even a castle. But is the other person a builder? Without a builder, there's no house, no castle, no relationship, in other words. That brings us to the 4th level. For a long-term relationship, the essential factor is compatibility. Romantic relationships rely not just on attraction or commitment, but on how well the personalities, values, and life goals of the two people mesh. You also need to consider how you and your partner manage conflicts, and if you enjoy everyday life together with all its ups and downs. Compatibility is essential. That's what turns a love story into a life story. Something real and enduring. Conversations about exclusivity and commitment. Conversations about exclusivity and commitment. It takes time to determine whether you and your partner are truly compatible. But there are also things you can look for in the early stages of dating. Something you may hear a lot of is that you should trust your instincts. Well, yes and no. Unfortunately, our instincts aren't always right. Think of a riptide, for example. If you're swimming in the sea and get caught in a riptide, your instinct tells you to swim toward the shore. But actually, you need to fight this natural instinct and swim parallel to the shore. That's the way to escape the current, so you can eventually swim to safety. It's similar in dating. Instead of blindly following your instincts and getting swept away by a fantasy, sometimes you need to take a more pragmatic approach to relationships. Look at the signs. For instance, let's say you're dating someone you really like and you feel that the person is starting to go cold or pull away. Your instinct might tell you to pursue that person. You feel like chasing after them. In truth, you need to realize that their lack of interest sends a clear message. If they're pulling away, let them go. Make yourself available for someone else, someone who actually wants to be with you. Having said that, it's not always clear-cut. When you're dating someone, especially if it's in the early stages, things can feel ambiguous. Most people aren't liars, they aren't deliberately deceptive, but many of us avoid sharing uncomfortable truths. If you're feeling confused, you need to step up and ask the tough questions. Doing so helps move a relationship from just being in your head to becoming something real and tangible, a connection based on mutual understanding and shared expectations. Let's say that it's been a few months and the relationship feels undefined. Are you together or not? Is the relationship exclusive? Where are things going? To tackle these uncertainties, start a conversation. Here's one way to go about it. Tell the person, I've really been enjoying our time together. I find myself not wanting to see other people because I want to see where this could go. How about you? Are you feeling the same? Having these open and honest conversations isn't easy. It requires vulnerability, which can be scary. But you need to be clear about what you want. That way you can judge the reality, not the fantasy, of what the other person is offering you and decide if that's enough. The real red flags. The real red flags in the dating world, it often feels like you're decoding a complex set of signals. For example, how to spot potential red flags. The term red flag can be a little reductive and is sometimes thrown around too loosely. However, there are certain behaviors that truly warrant concern. Understanding these signs can save you a lot of time and heartbreak. So, here are some critical red flags to watch out for. Talking negatively about multiple exes, bad sign. It might suggest the person has unresolved issues or a tendency to avoid personal responsibility. Also, notice how the person you're dating treats others, especially when they think you're not watching. That can reveal their true character and how they might eventually treat you. Another red flag is an unwillingness to apologize. It suggests a lack of humility combined with insecurity. You can't have true connection and growth with someone incapable of saying sorry. Other things to watch out for: consistently breaking promises, big or small, and inconsistent communication. Finally, love bombing or showering someone with excessive affection early on. This indicates immaturity and sometimes even manipulative or narcissistic tendencies. Love bombing can be tricky to identify. Maybe they're a narcissist, or maybe they just really like you. To check if what you're experiencing is love bombing, assess whether the emotional intensity is balanced between you two, or if it's mostly coming from them. Suggest taking things slower and see how they react. This can be very telling. What happens if you ignore these major red flags? In Hussey's experience, there tend to be three common outcomes. One is relationships ending abruptly. Although upon reflection, these breakups weren't as sudden as they seemed. The warning signs were there. The second outcome of overlooking red flags is more serious, falling into abusive relationships. And finally, the third likely outcome is wasting time in relationships that don't align with your long-term goals. For example, one woman spent 12 years with the wrong person and missed out on her dream of having children. It's important to approach red flags with a balanced perspective. People can change, and a single instance of questionable behavior doesn't necessarily define someone's entire character or their ability to grow in a relationship. When you notice a pattern that worries you, consider whether it's an isolated incident or part of a recurring behavior. If it seems like a behavior might improve, think of it as a cautionary signal. It's an amber light, not necessarily a stop sign. This means it's time to talk about it. Engaging in these difficult conversations is essential. Open up a dialogue and pay attention to how the other person responds. Their reaction can help you decide whether to proceed with the conversation, give the green light, or step back from the relationship. And while talking about it can seem scary, remember that conversation could prevent you from getting blindsided by a breakup, or worse, stuck in an abusive relationship or wasting years of your life. How to end it? How to end it? Let's say you didn't see the red flags. Or maybe you did, but you ignored them. Now you're stuck in an unhappy relationship, but you know you need to get out. How? Walking away is hard. Really hard. That's why Hussey has come up with a process, some mental steps to work through when you know you need to leave. They'll give you the courage to act and the strength to follow through no matter how painful it is. Keep in mind you need to go through all the steps. There are no shortcuts here. The process begins with a crucial, often painful realization. The person you're with is not going to change. This might be because they don't want to, or maybe they simply can't. Accepting this truth is vital. Next, think about how your empathy affects the relationship. Empathy is wonderful, but when it's limitless, it can lead to self-harm. You might find yourself justifying or rationalizing suffering and poor treatment because you care so much. It's also important to recognize when your empathy is actually masking your fears, like the fear of being alone or the daunting idea of starting over. It's crucial to know where to draw the line, balancing empathy with self-preservation. Once you've come to terms with this, you'll need to be brave. As Hussey puts it, you're going to have to light the fuse and blow up your life. This step is about embracing the harsh reality of your situation and preparing to act on it. It's time. However, as you gear up to take decisive action, doubts may creep in. You might wonder if things are really that bad or question the necessity of ending the relationship. This is when your mind tries to trick you into staying complacent. But it's crucial not to fall for these moments of second-guessing. Remind yourself firmly, continuing as things are means you'll never be truly happy. You'll never be at peace with this person. Sometimes, you need to let go of hope to save yourself. It's a stark realization, but necessary for moving forward. Staying in a stagnant, unhappy relationship only prolongs your suffering. Then prepare for what comes next. Yes, the breakup will hurt. It's like a drug addict going through withdrawal. You wouldn't tell someone to go back to using heroin. And similarly, the pain of the breakup doesn't mean that it was a mistake to end it. The discomfort and pain are natural. They're normal reactions to ending a significant part of your life. Finally, accept that recovery will take time. You may face days, weeks, or even months of emotional pain. It's a hard path to take. But of the two paths before you, only this one leads out of the darkness and towards something better. The happiness that you deserve, whether or not you're in a relationship.